At the end of the last video, we have a country store with the data coming from an SQL database. We have the product name, the product image URL, and the product description. Today, we're going to add a price to the existing model, which is in models.py. It's a bit trickier because we're going to attempt to add the price into a database, SQLite, that already has existing data. And it functions a little differently from PostgreSQL. Under the class food that we created, we're going to first go for the variable name. The name of the variable that we're deciding on is price. Then we put the type float in case we want to do some mathematical calculations on it. We'll go equal field 0.0, and we will make it nullable. This one will be false. Ideally, with this setup here, it would insert 0.0 into the SQL database when the field is not filled in, which would be the case for all the existing food products already in the database. However, there's going to be a small problem, which we will correct in this video. In the terminal window, I'm using WSL Ubuntu on Windows. And I'll go UV run opman.py. I'm using a wrapper for Alembic called opman migrate. And then I'm going to create the migration, which will create the Python code that we need to insert the SQL into the existing table. We'll do create. Migration message will be anything you want. It's for human readability. We've added price to product class. Okay, it created it. And normally you would do upgrade to run the, okay, there's an error. Cannot add a null column with default value null. Okay, so let's fix it. We're going to go into Alembic. We're going to look for the versions, and it's this version you just created, right? This is your description. We're going to go down until it says upgrade right here, and it's looking to add the column. It's a SQLAlchemy column. Price as a float, nullable equals false. But it doesn't have the server default as 0.0, which is what we specified. I need to put this thing in quotes. Let's try it. And it takes the upgrade here. This is a limitation of Alembic. If you didn't have the wrapper, you'd have to use Alembic, just straight Alembic. So it's unrelated to the FastOpp project, and we can't get around it. So we have to just do that manually right now. I'm going to start the server using the same tool, which is a wrapper, or run server. By default, admin is admin example, admin 1, 2, 3, and we're going to edit the foods to be a price with 2 decimal points. pork chop. Okay, do it for the rest of it. All right, we have it in a database. We want to display it onto the HTML page. So we're going to go into the templates directory. So templates folder in the root of your project. Go down to index.html. Look for the for loop that we added in the previous video. And we're going to add the price right here. So I just copied the description, and instead of the description, we're going to call it price. Let's see whether it comes up. Price down here, beautiful. All right, congratulations. You edited the database, added a field to existing data, and you've done the upgrade, including the manual editing of the alembic-generated Python command. Our site looks good, but it doesn't quite look like Amazon best practices. So look at this, images at the top, price, and there's a description here and a price. We're not going to do ratings. So I'm going to put the price at the top and put the description below that. Find out where the image is. Actually, I think I'll just move the food name below it. They do have it bigger, and they have this smaller text there. So let's try to make it bigger first. We'll add the $sign. Maybe we just make it black, which is the default color. And they made it bold. And it's a little too bold compared to the Amazon one. I think I'm gonna cut it down. Right there. So Amazon has the decimal point text kind of half height here. It's kind of difficult, but let's give it a shot. For success, we'll illustrate some of the features of Tailwind and Jinja 2, which is the template engine that we're using. So under the food description div, we have a div here that wraps the two parts. We set the food price, we make sure that's 2 decimal places on the float. We split it on the period, which would be the place between the decimal places and the dollar amount. And then we list price par to 0. We set up another div with smaller text, inline block, aligned to the top, and currently padding top of 1. And we'll see what it looks like. Oh, looks pretty good. Okay, let's compare to our reference. Congratulations on reaching this point in your tutorial. Let's cover some of the concepts that you've already learned. In video 1, there's the concept of template. We're using Jinja 2 template system, which is very common, and it's used with FastAPI. There's a concept of a model. This is a data model, and we're using the open source SQLModel, which is made by the same development team as FastAPI. SQLModel ties together the structure from Pydantic and SQLAlchemy. So you can research these to see what they are and to learn more about them. You learned about route. This is part of FastAPI, and it's how you get when you hit an endpoint, you run some Python code. Some of that Python code could connect it back to a web page, like a template. You learned with CSS styling with Tailwind. This does inline styling. It's controversial because it does not follow the separation of concerns with the common JavaScript, HTML, CSS. It has the styling inline. In my opinion, it's easier to use with AI human interaction because you can see this Tailwind styling as a human right there in the code, and you don't have to wonder what a custom CSS class is doing. We also covered how to customize the template workflow, where you take an example demo, like the header or the guts of the page, and you delete the unused portions, and then you add the pieces that is specific to your store or your application. This workflow is also useful for AI augmented interaction, where you tell the AI that you want to change the page in this way. However, you do need to learn what to do, or else it's going to be difficult to control the AI. In videos 2 through 4, you learned about static assets. This is a folder or directory on your root of the project usually, and it's where we stored the images. This was already mounted prior to you starting the video series in main. You do have to mount it in FastAPI and tell it where the static assets are. You also learned about SQLadmin. This is an open source project that provides the admin panel for SQLAlchemy. And this panel and SQLAlchemy are built into FastOpp. We covered an object relational mapper, a way to map Python code to the SQL database, and we're using SQLAlchemy, another open source project. We're using async sessions and not a normal database sessions in order to get asynchronous database connections. For this, we're using dependency injection, which is a concept from FastAPI. You learn how to run SQL queries from the Python code. In particular, you selected all the food objects with the select keyword. And once you had the food objects, you're able to send it over to the HTML page. We also covered additional customizations, such as the fab icon, so you can have the complete branding that is specific to your application. In video 5, we just covered the database migration, creation. So we're using Alembic on the back end. Alembic will generate Python code that is then executed to run and modify the SQL database. You may have to edit the Python code that's generated by Alembic manually from time to time. There's a database migration upgrade step, which then runs the Python code and actually creates the tables or modifies the tables in the SQL database. We also touched on Jinja 2 intermediate syntax using variables, including the Python method, the split, so split on period. In the future, we'll create a new page that we can then use to interact with the LLM in the future. We'll use an LLM API endpoint. We'll use the cloud-based service Open Router, which is a similar API to OpenAI. You could use OpenAI or Anthropic or any other ones as well. Their concepts are all the same. There's a system and a user prompt that sends instructions to the LLM. We'll get the response back. We hope to store this in the database. And once the response from the LLM is in the database, we can then build a human approval workflow from the LLM approval by human, and then you publish it onto your store. As we're still building the content, if you have feedback or suggestions, you can submit them and we'll take them into consideration.